All right, friends, welcome back to In the Valley Streams, our second venture into this. LSU had a big win yesterday in the NCAA tournament, advancing to the second round over the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure. To now that we're looking ahead, roughly 20, 22, 23 hours away from LSU's round two game against the one seeded Michigan Wolverines of the East region. And we have from Maize and Brew, official friend of And the Valley Shook and And the Valley Streams, uh, Anthony Broome. Hello, Anthony. Thank you again for such a quick turnaround hopping on with us. And like I said, you're our second guest. Like we're in the building stages and you're helping build this.
Well, I'm honored. I've always kind of felt like we were talking a little bit before, but I didn't hit on this. I've always kind of felt like Michigan and LSU are like the Spider-Man pointing meme,
Mhm.
where they point at each other in terms of. I mean, obviously, you guys won a national title in football in the last couple decades, more recently. So a little bit different there, but I've always kind of felt maybe it's I don't know what it is, but I've always felt the fondness and connection to the LSU crowd. So it's good to be here, good to be on, and I hate that it has to be adversarial, so to
Mhm.
speak, given Monday night's game. But I'm happy to be here.
And it's weird because we still haven't played each other in football yet. So as
No,
much as a kind of a blood brothers as Michigan and LSU seems to be, have yet to take the field in football. Now we have a recent meeting between LSU and Michigan in basketball. Uh, there's three all-time meetings. Michigan leads at 2-1, but LSU won the most recent meeting in Maui, Honolulu, somewhere in Hawaii, in one of those kind of early seasons non-conference get-ups that LSU won. And at the time, it was maybe the program's biggest, maybe not biggest SEC, biggest win, but biggest non-conference win in quite some time. I believe that's Will Wade's first season. Anthony, since then, Michigan has kind of climbed, maybe not to the top of the mountain, but they were consistently in the top two, top three, top four of the poll this year after starting out. Were they 25th or unranked? They weren't quite ranked, but they were up there, and just constant trajectory. Now they're a one seed, and yet everyone says this is the most vulnerable one seed there is. Yes or no? Is that true?
well, Illinois is out of the tournament as we speak,
Yep.
so I guess that's not true. I would have agreed with that coming into the tournament. Michigan's a team that the big news of March was that Isaiah Livers is not with the team, or he's with the team, will not be on the floor with them. He has a stress fracture in his foot. It's a 6 to 8 week injury normally. There could be some act of providence or act of divine intervention that if they make a deep run, maybe he comes back and plays as a decoy. I don't know. I tend to doubt that. But even with Livers, they scuffled. They lost 3 of the last 5 games of the year. Um, you know, hadn't played consistent basketball. Given maybe the biggest storyline of the year. They did start the year unranked, but it was a steady climb into the top. Whatever it was, they were ranked number 2 at some point. Um, the story of the year for them was the 3-week shutdown, which Baylor dealt with something similar due to the COVID. And again, it was not even COVID within the basketball program. There was a trace, or whatever you want to call it, of the variant. I believe the UK variant of COVID-19 that was detected in the athletic department, and the state of Michigan shut down everything, or recommended they shut down everything for 3 weeks. So really, I think what we saw with Michigan at the tail end of the season was they played 6 games in 14 days. And listen, this isn't the NBA. These guys they have access to pretty good amenities, but they don't have, and even the NBA guys do the load management thing. But I just think that things snowballed at the end of the year, and Illinois, we just talked about them, came into Chrysler Center, their home arena, and punched them in the mouth.
Mhm.
And they lost to Michigan State on the last game of the year. You didn't have Isaiah Livers. I mean, he played in the first Big Ten tournament game, but wasn't right, didn't score, and only played 15 minutes. Um, so that's kind of been the story of the year for them. They come into the tournament as the quote-unquote weakest number 1 seed. There was an argument there that maybe Alabama should have jumped them for that final seed, but again, they're 1-2 in that same region, so you can take it or leave it, I suppose. And when you look at what Alabama's dealing with now, to maybe get out of the East region, maybe they have the easier path anyways. So that's kind of the story so far. Now, despite Liver's injury, Michigan's a team that, still has 4 or 5 guys that on any given night can lead the team in scoring. They're deep, they're well coached, they're well prepared. So, Juwan Howard's won a couple of the National Coach of the Year awards already. So it's been, I don't think anyone expected it to happen this fast in the second year of him, given the foundation of his program is still kind of being built. So for that to be where they're at right now in this round of 32 game that we'll talk about is not going to be easy. But I think that from a big picture standpoint, there's not a single Michigan fan that is upset about or that is, everything's going pretty good right now.
Yeah. So, and Livers, of course, being out is maybe the biggest story surrounding Michigan. But as I'm writing for our preview tomorrow morning, Michigan without Livers, they are not devoid of talent. They have still plenty of talent. Possibly, maybe not 2 first-round picks, but two lottery picks with Hunter Dickinson and Franz Wagner, who is for NBA fans is the younger brother of Mo Wagner. Dickinson might be the biggest matchup problem LSU's had all season. LSU, while they are an athletic bunch, they get up and down the floor. They don't really have that size. And Dickinson at his 7'1" frame could he wreck this game for LSU?
Sure he could. I mean, you have a guy who, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Trenton Wadford plays the 5 for LSU, and he's 6'9", 240.
Yeah.
So
he's more of a stretch 5, yeah.
Yeah, you're dealing with a guy like Hunter Dickinson, who's more of a throwback big guy. He's 7'1" or 7'2", I think 280. And, a lot of people thought it was going to take – and it usually does unless you're one of those one-and-done guys like an Evan Mobley at USC. Sometimes it takes time for those guys. But Dickinson came to Michigan ready, college ready right out of the box. And he didn't start off the year. But he's been, again, I believe the AP had him as a second-team All-American. Don't know. I don't think the NBA draft is something that's in consideration for this year just because I don't think those types of guys are kind of being phased out at the NBA level. But, Dickinson, he's as good a throwback big as there is in this entire tournament. And I think that is probably – there are a lot of things this game probably hinges on, but when you look at what the best thing that Michigan might have going for it is that size disparity in there. And despite that, they've gotten out-rebounded a little bit, down the stretch, despite having a size advantage. And even when Dickinson comes out of the game, you have a 6'10", 6'11" guy in Austin Davis who is, talk about throwback center. He's not what Dickinson is, but, he's, again, one of the better backup centers in college basketball too. So, the thing with Dickinson is that I think this is probably a mismatch for him, but he has gotten into foul trouble a little bit lately. And if LSU is able to do that, and something else that I think that LSU might be able to do is get him to play or get him to defend a little more outside of the post. That's where they can stretch the floor with Wadford a little bit. That might be the matchup of the game right there. Whoever wins that battle, the tape would suggest that Dickinson might have the upper hand there, but if he gets 2 quick fouls and he sits the rest of the first half, that's where we might get a little bit of a track meet on our hands, and it becomes about who hits more shots or not.
What about Wagner? Because I don't remember Mo Wagner as well as I'm sure you do. Mo Wagner is more of a big, correct? And is Franz more of a wing?
Yeah, Mo was we just talked about kind of a stretch 5. That's kind of what he is. He was a 4 or 5. Franz is a guy who Michigan lists him as a guard. He's, but he's 6'10", like 220 or something like that. So a big, physical, athletic wing player, a guy that, on any given night, he's capable of going out and getting you 20 points. It just depends on what the matchup looks like. But he brings, and Michigan fans kind of get frustrated because they've seen him do that. And you might have a game where he scores 20, then he might score 8 or 9 points the next game. And that's been a point of frustration for some Michigan fans. But when you look at the stats, and he does a lot of things that don't show up in the stat sheet too. He's extremely one of the four, in my opinion, probably one of the 4 or 5 best defenders in all of college hoops, which is ridiculous. It's kind of crazy to think about because nobody in the Big Ten voted him to the All Big Ten defensive team, which was a snub, and I will go to my grave saying that. But that's a guy who he's a great passer. He's an adept rebounder. He gets after it on both ends of the floor. Someone who offensively, I think he just does a good job of taking what the game gives to him. You know, obviously at 6'10", you're playing the wing. He's got a long wingspan, and you know, you see a lot of that European style of, you know, slashing type of basketball. He's capable of doing that, and it seems like when he stretches out and extends to the rim, there's not really many people who've been able to swat that away or change that shot up. So that's where, you know, if he's locked in offensively, livers or not, I think Michigan is still one of the 2 or 3 best teams in this whole field. It's just a matter of, you know, what the game plan. I think teams know that too. So it's just a matter of what the game plan is, and that if you want to give all your attention to, this is the beauty of, maybe not the beauty for LSU fans, but from a Michigan standpoint, go ahead and double Hunter Dickinson, because if you stop him, you've got 3 or 4 other guys on the perimeter who he can kick it out to. If you throw all your eggs in the Wagner basket, he can dump it right out. You know, he's good enough as a passer to dump it into the post to Dickinson. So there's a lot of those little chain reaction type things that are going on with this team too right now, and that's I think they're still figuring that out without Livers, because he was a big part of that. But that's where both of those guys kind of factor into the mix right now.
It's so funny, Anthony, hearing you talk about Wagner. That's basically the same thing. Like when you said if he's locked in offensively, that's the mo with Darius Days. Is Days probably going to end up drawing Wagner and vice versa?
That's a good question. I would have to think. You know, I am guessing. Again, I'm still kind of working through the scouting report myself. I am guessing that Michigan is going to want him dealing with Cam Thomas.
Really?
It might be a combination, and they have the ability to switch too. But you know, given that LSU has a little bit bigger of a backcourt than Michigan does, so that's an area where I think LSU might have an advantage in this game. I think the length of Wagner might be something that you know, and Wagner, I don't anticipate him playing much against Watford at all. But again, similar type of builds, at least from a wingspan perspective. Days could be a guy that he draws that assignment. Again, I think Franz has the ability. He could guard, you know, he could guard 4 of those positions on the floor. So I think we'll probably see Wagner, some combination of Wagner and Cameron Thomas, or I'm sorry, Wagner and Eli Brooks on Cameron Thomas. But again, Brooks is a guy who's maybe just not 6 foot or 6'1" either. So I think Michigan will try and throw some length and athleticism at him. And at least, you know, we talked to Coach Howard and the players today. They were kind of playing coy about that. So my theory is that that's probably, you know, if we're talking about Franz Wagner being a lottery pick, these are the type of matchups that you look for. So that's where I would, that's kind of where I see that going.
Let's talk about Cam. What does Michigan? Thomas is like maybe one of the best scorers in the country, and if it does get into kind of a track meet type of game, does Michigan have like that one dude who can match Thomas shot for shots?
Well, they don't. If you're asking me if they have a legitimate like superstar that could go, you know, tit for tat with them, Wagner might be the closest thing. Again, it's been a rotating cast of guys all season long. It could be Eli Brooks. It could be the point guard Mike Smith. It could be Hunter Dickinson. Like I said, if Thomas is kind of going off, and I know he had I think 27 against the Bonnies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if Michigan has this size advantage inside, Hunter Dickinson's capable of going out and giving you 20, 25 points. So again, it's if it comes down to one of those games where their guys hitting shots, who's our guy going to be? It's just kind of going to depend on who's got it going. And that's been a part of what's made Michigan so good this year is that on any given night, Isaiah Livers could drop 18. He's not there now, but Wagner could drop 20. Dickinson could drop 20. Mike Smith has had a couple of nice 18 points, double-digit assist type of games. So they just do a really good job, and this goes back to the coaching staff too. They just do a really good job of taking what teams give them and adjusting to that too. I'll say this, and I might be jumping the gun here, but if there's a spot for LSU to kind of establish itself early in this game, it's probably right off the jump in those first 4 minutes or so. Michigan's kind of a team that it's what's the old adage about, like, the boxers, the heavyweight boxing match where the one side is just kind of feeling things out and seeing how things go. That's kind of how Michigan has approached. I won't say how they've approached it this way, but a lot of their games have seen them start off slow until that under 16 timeout. So not a lot of teams have been able to take advantage of that, which part of that's because Michigan is so good defensively that when their shots aren't falling, they can kind of pull you down to their level and get into a rock fight with them till they figure it out. So again, it's really tough to, on any given night, it's literally like a roulette wheel. Just take your pick and who's going to be the guy. And like I said, I think in this matchup, Hunter Dickinson has a chance to have a really nice game. Brandon Johns, who started for Isaiah Livers, is another guy who kind of more of a power type of power forward as opposed to Livers, just kind of a big wing. So those are guys that I think maybe have if you're looking at who's going to match Thomas on the score sheet, I think it could be a guy like Dickinson or maybe Brandon Johns kind of comes out of nowhere and does that.
And Anthony, what about because I got it right here. This is a really good 3-point shooting team. I'm looking. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 guys shooting 37% or better. So
yeah, it's been, and Livers, like, this is where I keep talking about Livers here, but this is, you get the sense of how big a loss that is for them. He's one of those 50% from the floor, 40% from three, 90% from the free throw line type of guys. So you lose a big piece of that. A lot of these guys have done a really nice job of, when the opportunity presents itself, being able to kind of force the defense to account for you at the 3-point line. And that's where Hunter Dickinson has had some good games too. So to a certain extent, it's been the pick your poison type thing for them all season long. So again, when they play, I can't, it's less of an, LSU's a team. What, they go out, they let their athletes be athletes. They're going to go out and let their guys running up and down the floor. And, a guy like Cameron Thomas is going to score a bunch of points. Michigan's a little more structured than that, but, in terms of being liberal in their use of the 3-point line, they do shoot a lot from there. And sometimes when you shoot a lot from there, you get cold, things get a little dicey out there. So that's something to look for too. They're going to go play in the football stadium on Monday night. So the sight lines are weird. I don't know if LSU's played in a place like that this year. It could be something that throws them off. Michigan played the Big Ten tournament there, so maybe they might be used to it. I'm not sure. But given that if you're going to make a run in this tournament, you're going to play there sooner or later. It's just going to be whoever handles that atmosphere better, I think. So, Michigan has a chance. Michigan has played the classic Big Ten rock fight, first team to 60 type of games. There was a stretch during the season where I think in their first 15 games, only 1 or 2 of those games they scored less than 80 points. So they can fill it up from out there too. So they can get into a track meet with LSU. It could be that type of game, but again, if they don't make their shots and aren't defending super well, this could go either way.
Does Michigan want it to get into a track meet? I feel like that would favor LSU more so.
I don't think so. I think when you look at a team like LSU, that's someone you want to kind of bring into the mud, so to speak. And at least from a tempo, perspective, LSU, they're not elite. And they're 78th on KenPom. But if LSU gets caught playing Michigan's type of game, or Michigan's not Virginia by any means, but a track meet would definitely benefit LSU. So, but Michigan can keep. Again, Michigan's good enough offensively where they can play in that type of game. But I do think if that's the type of game you get into, especially when you have a star like LSU does with Cam Thomas, that's a dangerous game to play, especially at Michigan, for a Michigan team where I don't want to say like they're just kind of, I won't say people are waiting for the other shoe to drop, but they haven't truly felt the loss of Isaiah Livers yet. You're going to learn the value of a guy like that if you get into a track meet with this team.
And so I want to get your opinion. I don't know if you saw any of the St. Bonaventure game, but doing my research on the Bonnies, doing my research on Michigan, they seem like they compare pretty favorably. In Michigan, with the talent is maybe like a more souped up version of St. Bonaventure, efficient offense, great defense. Michigan plays a little bit more tempo than St. Bonaventure, but the Bonnies play it so deliberate, so slow. And I thought that would be LSU's undoing Saturday, and yet they beat the Bonnies. Maybe not beat the Bonnies at their own game, but out-rebounded St. Bonaventure, chased them off the line, held to 3 of 20 from 3 points. What worries you about LSU?
Well, it's Cam Thomas would definitely be at the top of that list, given what he's been able to do this year. I think it is the fact that you go through and look at KenPom. I mean, LSU is the fifth ranked team in offensive efficiency in the country. It is the ability to, Michigan struggled against Ohio State defending them this year. They've played. They've defended. It's been kind of Jekyll and Hyde. They've held Iowa to what I think was their lowest point total of the year. So, that's as good an offensive team as it gets in college basketball. You look at LSU, it's just, I feel like maybe slightly more athletic than Michigan is, but as far as the comparisons to St. Bonaventure, all I can say about this, I didn't see a ton of that game, but Michigan is one of, I think, two teams left in the tournament that has both a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense on KenPom. And the only other team that can say that right now is Gonzaga. So I would think Michigan's a rung below that, especially without Livers. But I just think the thing that maybe to kind of flip the question a little bit, I just don't think that LSU's seen Alabama, but Alabama is not as efficient an offense as Michigan is, or it hasn't been throughout the year. There have been times that they are, but when you look at the duration of the year and what the body of works is, I don't think LSU's seen a team like this yet. And you could make the argument it might be the most talented team they've seen this year. You can make the argument it might be the best coach team that they've seen this year, though I know obviously what Nate Oates is doing at Alabama is so impressive, and LSU lost to them, I believe, all 3 times. But it's just,
I believe so too.
It's just and it's not. You say it not to sound like cocky or anything, but Michigan maybe hasn't seen some of the athletes that LSU has yet, but LSU hasn't really seen what Michigan brings to the table either. So I really do think this is going to be a fun basketball game. Vegas sees it being tight. KenPom sees it being tight. I think at last I checked, Michigan is favored by 6 on KenPom. So again, it's all going to be about, to me, even with Michigan having experience playing there, the sightlines in that football stadium, it's just, I know how weird that is. About all the time during this time of year. Teams usually don't have to deal with that until the Final Four or Sweet 16, Elite 8. So the fact that that's a challenge that's being thrown at you right away, Michigan's a team that scored 82 points on Saturday. LSU probably scored more points than people thought they might against a St. Bonaventure team that you said plays a really good defense. So, does that cool either of those teams off? I don't know. There are a lot of questions going into it. It's hard to say. People have been asking me for, even before, because you can kind of look into your crystal ball. When Michigan's playing a 16, LSU, it was the better basketball team on Saturday. A lot of people kind of anticipated this matchup coming. Like I said, I don't. There are people who think that Michigan dips out of the tournament in this game, and there are people that still think they can go to the Final Four. I don't know. I think this game determines that for me. It's weird to say, but I still don't really know what this team is right now without the heart and soul of its team, its best player, a senior leader, a captain, someone who I think will play in the NBA. So it's tough to say. I really just think it boils down to, for LSU, it's can we speed up Michigan, and can we get just enough stops on the other end of the floor to do what we have to do. And that's where, I think Hunter Dickinson is kind of the key to all that. If he gets into foul trouble, or LSU is able to scheme up a way to give him fits, that's where maybe this game turns in favor of LSU. Because if you take Isaiah Livers is already out, you take Dickinson out of the game, and then I think things really get dicey, and that's kind of where the game turns. So when you're looking for a player of the game or someone that's an emphasis of this game on Monday, I think that's probably the guy. That's the biggest key to both of those teams. It's for Michigan, we got to get this guy going. Time to unleash him. Time to be a monster. Time to use that size advantage. For LSU, it's, hey, if we throw him off his game and we just play good enough defense, we might have a chance to, give ourselves a chance to play in the Sweet 16 and see what happens from there.
And Anthony, let me ask one more thing before I kind of wrap up. It seems like Michigan's got a lot of depth. LSU doesn't have that. It seems like LSU, of course, obviously they play 5 guys on the floor at all times, but really they get their production from 4 guys. Michigan looks like they go, obviously without Livers, but it looks like they go 8 or 9 deep. Does Juwan Howard in this game, does he lean on that depth, or do you think he tightens up the rotation and maybe makes it 7?
I think if they have a chance to flex the depth, and those guys have to play well, that's what they'll do. Because if the downside of a team like LSU playing fast is that those guys, if you're not so deep, you might be gassed at the end of the game, especially if Michigan can bring in a guy like Chauncey Brown off the bench, who was a starter at Wake Forest last year. Now he could start on most teams in the country. He comes off the bench as your 6th man, and talking about a defensive motor, a guy that gets after it on both ends of the court. You bring that guy off the bench, and LSU's guys kind of have their hands on their hips. That's if Michigan's able to do that, and they've got a couple freshmen who, talk about the bigger guards, the bigger backcourt that LSU has. Michigan's got a freshman guard in Zeb Jackson, who is kind of slowly playing himself into a nice little role and scored a couple baskets the other day. If Michigan's able to bring those guys off the bench in waves, think more like hockey lines, and keep those guys fresh. Yeah, that's another way that Michigan can win this game, and do so. I won't say comfortably, but if you're a deeper basketball team, you got to flex it and you got to show it, and those guys have to play well. So, a team that before Livers probably could go 9 deep. Now they're 1 body down. A couple of the other freshmen are getting some more minutes here and there. But again, it's just like, can your starters have to take care of your business. But I think the second unit, there's a chance that those 2 units for each team might have a big hand in what happens in this game as well.
Love the hockey analogy. As a Nashville resident of almost 2 years now, I am, of course, a big hockey guy. I've been to a total of 3 Predator games. Probably won't find a bigger hockey fan than me. I have like 17 pieces of Predator apparel, not to brag. Anthony, and you kind of spoke on this, but we'll wrap up with this. Finish these sentences for me. LSU wins if blank, and Michigan wins if blank.
Well, LSU wins this game if they throw Hunter Dickinson off their game, and if Cam Thomas does what Cam Thomas does. That's, like I said, I think Dickinson is definitely the biggest key to all of that. From Michigan wins this game, is I think you can, it might be kind of not making this direct comparison where you kind of do the Michael Jordan thing where you let Jordan get his and shut down everyone else. If you can do that. So, Michigan's just gotta take care of it. I think take care of your business on the boards is going to be big for them. And like I said, getting Dickinson going, it's all tied in. It's all together. So, like I said, if Michigan's able to go, tit for tat with the shots, I think that's probably bad news for LSU. So, that's basically what it boils down to me. Michigan can win this game if it's not shooting well because they are so good defensively. But like I said, if you let those athletes run around, that could be a problem because, like I said, I still think there's a kind of walking on eggshells thing with this team where they might kind of be teetering because they still, they're confident, but they still might not know what they are yet. So that's where we're at.
Okay, good stuff. All right, guys. We'll call this a night. We're now maybe 21 hours or so till tip off. Of course, if we have more basketball content to talk about, hopefully LSU will win. But to be perfectly honest, guys, I don't like this matchup for LSU. I would pick Michigan to win, even though I have LSU win on my bracket, so I'm kind of hedging my pick. But yeah, we'll wrap this up, guys. This was a lot of fun. Anthony, thank you for coming on the Valley Streams. Hopefully, we'll get that long-awaited meeting on the football field. And maybe how's Michigan doing in baseball? Maybe we'll meet in June.
Yeah, baseball's looking good. Got to start getting the ball rolling on that football scheduling. At this rate, could probably get something on the books for like 2042 or something like that.
Yeah,
they schedule that far out. So,
and hopefully it'll be a true home and home, not play in Ford Field and the Superdome. Actually, going to the Big House and Death Valley.
Let's do it for reals. Let's not go to Jerry. I mean, it'd be fun to go to Jerry World and tailgate and whatnot, but let's do it. Let's do the Death Valley Big House thing. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, my biggest regret with football is the Wisconsin quote unquote home and home where it was Lambeau and Houston. I mean, come on, let us go to Camp Randall. Like bring back the true home and homes. But Anthony, thank you again for this, and I will definitely talk to you tomorrow because I'll have some more questions for you about all this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Anthony.